A U.S. federal district judge, Catherine C. Blake, has just made a ruling on a case that affects an issue in Maryland. Essentially, the ruling claims that assault rifles are dangerous and unusual, and that for that reason, and other ones handed down in her judgment, they are not protected by the Second Amendment of the Constitution. Understand the seriousness of this. This federal judge has ruled that assault rifles are not protected by the Second Amendment. This case is over Colby et al. V. O'Malley et al. What it is that somebody was suing to try to stop some of the unjust gun laws that exist in Maryland. I highly agree. I think they are too restrictive of guns. Now, they were suing to try to remove some of that so they could have more freedom. However, this appears to have backfired as the judge has made an opposite ruling, which will now place more restrictions on firearms, in this case particularly AR and AK style assault rifles. Upon review of all the parties' evidence, the court seriously doubts that the banned assault long guns are commonly possessed for lawful purposes, particularly self-defense in the home, which is at the core of the Second Amendment right, and is inclined to find the weapons fall outside the Second Amendment protection as dangerous and unusual. First, the court is not persuaded that assault weapons are commonly possessed based on the absolute number of those weapons owned by the public, even accepting that there are 8.2 million assault weapons in the civilian gun stock, as the plaintiffs claim. Assault weapons represent no more than 3% of the current civilian gun stock, and ownership of those weapons is highly concentrated in less than 1% of the U.S. population. The court is also not persuaded by the plaintiff's claim that assault weapons are used infrequently in mass shootings and murders of law enforcement officers. The available statistics indicate that assault weapons are used disproportionately in their ownership in the general public and, furthermore, cause more injuries and more fatalities when they are used. As for the claims that assault weapons are well suited for self-defense, the plaintiffs proffer no evidence beyond their desire to possess assault weapons for self-defense in the home that they are in fact commonly used or possessed for that purpose. Finally, despite the plaintiff's claim that they would like to use assault weapons for defensive purposes, assault weapons are military-style weapons designed for offensive use and are equally or possibly even more effective in functioning and killing capacity as their fully automatic versions. There's some things here that this judge said in this anti-gun ruling. Assault weapons are dangerous? Like, all guns aren't dangerous? Like, what's the point? All guns are dangerous, so what's particularly unique about this? Because they're particularly more powerful, and it says that people really don't use them for defending their home? So what? Subjective preference on which gun you use to defend your home? Like, that's not really an argument against assault rifles. And even says that it does more damage. It's a more powerful gun and can kill more in its use. Well, yeah, that's what it was designed for. So what's the point? Like, what are they saying here? Essentially, what this judge is saying, without really getting around to saying it, is that it's too dangerous for civilians to own guns. And that's the crux of the argument here. They're saying civilians don't need assault weapons or military-style weapons like this. Some commentators on this case pointed out that cops are civilians. Well, if civilians aren't allowed to have military-grade weapons, then why do the police still have them? Or at the very least, they should be taken away from the police. I would like to correct that statement by saying police are not civilians. They're not military, but they are civilians. They are classified as paramilitary or quasi-military forces. They are military forces, quasi, but not controlled by the federal government. This is why police have military-style ranks, sergeant, lieutenant, captain. This is why their training and their tactics is quasi-military, and why their uniforms are quasi-military. Because the police technically are not civilians. They're like paramilitary. They're not outright military, but they are paramilitary forces. So they will legally be able to continue to use assault weapons against the public. But of course, we're not going to be able to use them back. I say let us be honest. Let us be honest with why we really want assault weapons. To defend ourselves, and to defend ourselves from the government. Well, we know what happens if you're black and you have no guns. You get killed anyway. Look at all these protests. And one of the things that the Bundy Ranch did, the Bundy Ranch protests that went on, one of the things that made the police scared to take any action, aside from the fact that they're white and middle class, and some of them even upper middle class, was the fact that they had guns. I don't believe that I need to have a gun to defend my home from somebody breaking in. Although I would use it for that, definitely. I feel that I am more threatened by the bourgeois state. I am more threatened by the increasing police powers that even Canada's putting through, let alone the United States, which has put through a tremendous amount of more police powers. More fascist things, spying, wrongful arrest, arrest without charge, all kinds of things. But I mean, you really can't walk into a courtroom and say that. Well, I would like to make the argument, Your Honor, that I would like to keep an assault rifle to fight the government. You're probably going to get in trouble for that. But frankly, that's really what it is that we want it for. And that's mainly the reason we really should have it. Because we should also not forget the class aspect of this. And I think that's one thing that's being overlooked. Because this is such a conservative, liberal issue, gun control, not having control of guns, it always gets bound up within that very, very narrow discussion about the whole issue. I think what people are forgetting is the class issue behind this. You and I, working class people, we don't have access to resources like the rich do. How much you want to bet that private security firms are going to be able to have assault rifles? That they're not going to get it taken away from them, and then some kind of exception is going to be made for businesses, like professional bodyguard services. Because the bourgeois still want every bit of protection for them, particularly if this recession starts to get worse, or we hit a second or third dip, depending on who you talk to, and society really starts to break down. I guarantee you the bourgeois are going to start spending more on private security. So when it all starts getting really, really bad, who's going to have protection? Who's going to have guns? The necessary firepower to protect themselves? It's going to be the upper class. Because you and I aren't going to be running around with personal bodyguards, with licenses and special weapons in order to defend ourselves. The bourgeois are going to. Essentially, this ruling, while it does take guns away, more specifically, it takes guns away from working class people. Because the rich are still going to have it. The upper classes are still going to have guns. Who's not going to have assault rifles is the regular, everyday people. Not those who own capital, not those who own the means of production. While they personally won't have it, they will have their own private armies that will have it, even if it's 1 or 2 bodyguards. And I think that's the real thing that needs to be pointed out here, the class aspect of this ruling. Thank you for watching. Please comment and rate the video. If you liked it, hit subscribe or check out some of these other great videos. If you wish, share it on social media. While you're at it, why don't you follow me on Twitter? And if you got time, go on over to the MRN bookstore and check out some of the latest books available.